You ever wonder if evil runs in the blood? If maybe some things are born into you long before you even take your first breath? Well, let me tell you a story. One that begins with a girl named Layla Sinclair, though most folks knew her as Layla Marshall. Layla grew up thinking her life was ordinary, if you could call bruises and screaming ordinary. Her boyfriend, Ryan, had a temper like wildfire, and every night she prayed it wouldn't catch her. Her mother told her to be strong, to endure, to never ask about her real father. That name, Sinclair, was forbidden in their house. Until the night everything changed. Ryan's fists went too far. Layla hit the floor, and the world turned black. Doctors said she was in a coma for 2 months, but Layla said she heard things. Whispers, voices. They called to her from the dark. Wake up, and finish what was started. When she opened her eyes again, she wasn't the same. She smiled differently. She dreamed of places she'd never been, of a town shrouded in mist and blood, a place called Blackfield. Her stepfather tried to stop her, but she was already gone, driving through the dead woods toward the forgotten town that stank of rot and memory. The signs were rusted, the houses hollow, but she knew where to go. An old farmhouse. The walls were black with age, the floorboards whispering as she walked. In the corner of a cellar, she found an object wrapped in time and dust, a pig mask, grotesque, cracked, dried blood around the edges. When she touched it, the whispers became screams. He's your father's son, and you are his daughter. At first, she fought it, trembling hands, racing heart. But when she slid the mask over her face, oh, it was like breathing for the first time. The fear melted away, the pain, the memories, all gone. Only one thing remained: hunger. They say the first cut is the hardest. For Layla, it was a reunion. She found Ryan one night, stumbling drunk outside a bar. He didn't recognize her at first, the mask, the blade in her hand, the silence behind her eyes. But when she whispered his name, he froze. And when she smiled, he screamed. By morning, the only thing left of Ryan was the red stain in the alley. And now, when the wind passes through Blackfield, you can hear it. A faint giggle, a whisper, a woman's voice humming through the fog. Some say it's the spirit of the butcher of Blackfield, but I know better. It's his daughter, and she's still listening to the voices, still wearing the mask, still finishing what was started in blood. So if you ever drive through the old roads past Blackfield and hear someone whisper your name from the dark, you'd better hope it isn't Layla Sinclair. You came back. Good. Most people hear about Layla Sinclair and decide they've had enough. But you want the whole truth, the long road, the 25 years of obsession, the cult, the detective who never let go. All right, let me take you deeper. Detective Thomas Newman had been chasing a ghost for 25 years. Blackfield wasn't just a town to him, it was a wound, a place where the soil never quite washed clean. Back in the late 1990s, when the remains of the original butcher of Blackfield, Arnold Sinclair, were first uncovered in that rotting farmhouse, Newman was just a young cop with sharp eyes and a naive belief in justice. Arnold Sinclair had slaughtered without pattern. No motive, no manifesto, just ritual. They found the pig mask in evidence storage. They cataloged it. They sealed it away. But something about Arnold bothered Newman. The killings weren't chaotic. They were staged, almost ceremonial. And then there was the rumor. Arnold had a son, Lucian. No birth certificate, no school records, just whispers from drifters and motel clerks who remembered a pale boy with quiet eyes. Newman never found Lucian, and now, 25 years later, he was staring at a new crime scene. A young man in an alley, brutalized. No fingerprints, no witnesses, except for one thing spray-painted on the brick wall in red. A crude white rose. Meanwhile, miles away in New York, inside the halls of Columbia University, Professor Elias Whitmore was smiling. Whitmore wasn't a killer. He was worse. He was fascinated. He lectured on criminal mythology, the psychology of serial murder. He often referenced the White Rose Killer, a murderer from the 1970s who left dried white roses on victims' chests, and compared him to Arnold Sinclair of Blackfield. Monsters, Whitmore would say to his class, are not born in isolation. They echo each other. His students adored him. He was charismatic, soft-spoken, dangerous in that intellectual way. But Whitmore believed something radical. He believed evil was evolutionary. And when news broke of the alley murder bearing a white rose symbol and whispers of a pig mask, Whitmore felt it. A resurgence. He began hosting private meetings in his dorm building. Late-night discussions, candles, wine. 5 students at first, then 12, then 20. They called themselves the Cult of Blackfield. Back in Blackfield, Layla had stopped trembling. The first kill changes you. The second defines you. She wasn't sloppy. She wasn't loud. She was methodical. Like she'd inherited a blueprint written in bone. The voices didn't scream anymore. They guided. Blood is inheritance. Pain is clarity. Finish what he started. She began researching Arnold Sinclair, newspaper archives, old interviews, court documents. Her mother had changed her name after one night with Lucien, Arnold's son. Layla had never met Lucien, but now she wondered, was he alive? Was he watching? Or was he one of the voices? Detective Newman stared at the autopsy report. The wounds weren't identical to Arnold's killings. They were refined, intentional. And then came the DNA result, partial match, to evidence pulled from Arnold Sinclair's crime scenes decades ago. Newman leaned back in his chair. Not a copycat, he whispered. A descendant. He reopened every file connected to Blackfield. And that's when he found her. Layla Sinclair, alias Layla Marshall. History of domestic abuse. Recent coma. Boyfriend missing, presumed dead. Newman didn't believe in coincidence. Professor Whitmore's meetings had changed. They no longer discussed killers. They celebrated them. The students wore white roses pinned to their jackets. They studied Sinclair's methods like sacred scripture. Whitmore told them, Blackfield is not a place. It's a philosophy. Some students dropped out. Others became devoted. One night, a freshman named Caleb stood and said, if evil evolves, shouldn't we help it? Whitmore didn't answer. He smiled. Layla returned to the farmhouse. The pig mask hung on the wall like a relic. She lit candles, sat cross-legged on the floor, and spoke into the silence. Lucien, if you're alive, come find me. The wind howled through broken windows. And somewhere, miles away, Detective Newman's phone rang. Another body, this time in New York. White rose placed gently on the chest. Pig-shaped incision carved into the wall. Newman flew to New York. He walked into Columbia's campus, like a storm cloud in a trench coat. He requested access to Professor Whitmore's lectures. Whitmore welcomed him warmly. Detective Newman, he said smoothly, you've been chasing ghosts for a long time. Newman didn't smile. You're turning my case into a religion. Whitmore leaned forward. Maybe it always was one. Layla watched from the back of a candlelit dorm meeting. She had followed the whispers to New York. The cult members chanted softly. Whitmore spoke of legacy, and when Layla stepped forward and removed her hood, the room fell silent. She didn't say she was Sinclair's blood. She didn't need to. They felt it. Whitmore approached her carefully. You're the evolution, he said, and for the first time, Layla smiled without fear. Newman connected everything. The cult, the murders, the DNA. But something bothered him. Arnold killed without symbolism. The White Rose killer left flowers. Now the two mythologies were merging. Someone was orchestrating this. Not Layla, not Whitmore. Someone older, someone patient. One night, Layla found a letter slipped under her dorm door. No return address. 3 words. You found it. Inside the envelope, an old photograph. A pale young man standing beside Arnold Sinclair. On the back, Lucien, and beneath it, I'm proud of you. Lucien wasn't dead. He had been watching for decades. He'd studied the White Rose killer. He'd corresponded secretly with Whitmore years ago under a pseudonym. He believed in cultivation, not chaos. Layla wasn't just his daughter. She was proof that blood remembers. The cult gathered in Blackfield. All of them, students, Whitmore, Layla, candles lining the farmhouse. Newman arrived alone, gun drawn. The pig mask gleamed in the candlelight. Whitmore spoke. Detective, you've chased a story for 25 years. Tonight, you witness its rebirth. And then, a voice from the staircase, calm, measured. Lucien, older now, silver-haired, eyes identical to Layla's. You kept my father famous, Lucien told Newman. You kept him alive. Newman realized something horrifying. He hadn't been hunting a killer. He had been preserving a legend. Layla stood between them all, the cult chanting softly, Whitmore trembling with devotion, Lucien watching with paternal pride, Newman aiming his weapon. End this, Newman said. Layla's hands shook. The voices roared, "Kill them all." But another voice, small and buried, whispered something else. "You are more than inheritance." She looked at the pig mask, at her father, at the cult, and finally, at Newman. And now, this is where I stop talking. "All right, you chose the blood. You chose the mask. So don't look at me like you didn't see this coming. Let me tell you how Layla Sinclair stopped being a victim and became something far worse than Arnold ever was. You remember where we left off? The farmhouse, the candles, the cult kneeling, Lucien standing in the shadows like a proud architect, Detective Newman aiming his weapon with trembling hands. Layla stood in the center of it all. And she made her choice. She put the pig mask back on, slowly, deliberately. The chanting grew louder. Lucien smiled. Newman fired. The bullet missed her by inches, shattering a window behind her. But in that second of recoil, Lucien moved. The old man was faster than he looked. Newman hit the ground hard, the gun skidding across the wooden floor. Layla stepped forward. Newman looked up at her, breath ragged. "You don't have to do this," he whispered. But Layla didn't see a detective anymore. She saw a man who had kept her grandfather's legend alive, who had unknowingly watered the roots of Blackfield with obsession. "You kept him alive," she said softly behind the mask. "Now you'll meet him." The cult held Newman down. Lucien didn't intervene. This was not his moment. This was hers. And when it was over, Blackfield had a new butcher. The cult of Blackfield evolves. News spread quietly. Disappearances across state lines. Symbols carved into abandoned buildings. White roses left at the edges of forests. But this wasn't chaos. Layla refined the mythology. Arnold had killed out of compulsion. Lucien had manipulated from the shadows. But Layla? Layla built a movement. Professor Whitmore became her prophet. His lectures at Columbia University shifted subtly. No longer academic curiosity, now coded sermons. Evil misunderstood, he would tell his students. History written by cowards who fear power. The cult of Blackfield spread to other campuses. Online forums, private gatherings masked as philosophy clubs. Layla did not kill recklessly. She chose abusers, predators, corrupt men hiding behind respectability. Each death ritualized, each scene deliberate, each whispering to the world. The bloodline continues. Lucien's realization. Lucien had always believed himself the architect. But as months passed, he began to see something unsettling. Layla did not ask for his approval. She did not consult him. She did not hesitate. One evening in the farmhouse, Lucien confronted her. "You're accelerating," he warned. "Power must be cultivated carefully." Layla removed the mask and looked at him. "You hid," she said calmly. "You watched. You whispered from shadows." She stepped closer. "I don't hide." For the first time in his life, Lucien felt something cold in his spine. Arnold had been rage. Lucien had been intellect. Layla was balance. And that made her dangerous. The woman of whispers. It was on a fog-heavy night that Layla met her. Layla had gone walking alone beyond the edges of Blackfield. The woods were silent in a way that felt unnatural. No insects, no wind, just stillness. And then, a voice. "Sinclair blood walks heavily." Layla turned. An old woman stood between the trees, dressed in black, layered fabric that seemed untouched by the dirt around her. Her eyes were pale, almost silver. "I know you," the woman said softly. "Or rather, I knew him." Layla didn't flinch. "Who are you?" The woman smiled. "Some called me witch. Some called me devil's bride. But the ones who truly understood called me Eleanor. Eleanor, the woman of whispers." She claimed she had survived the hysteria of the Salem witch trials, not by innocence, but by bargain. "I made a deal," Eleanor said calmly. "Longevity in exchange for perspective." Layla studied her carefully. She did not sense madness, only certainty. "You knew Arnold," Layla said. Eleanor nodded. "He was not the monster they painted." Layla's jaw tightened behind the mask. "He slaughtered people." Eleanor stepped closer. "He punished wolves disguised as shepherds. Your grandfather had a sensitivity. He felt corruption like rot beneath his skin. He could not ignore it." Layla felt something stir in her chest. Validation, but he lacked restraint, Eleanor continued. And Lucien lacked courage. The old woman's eyes narrowed slightly. "You Layla, you lack neither. A different legacy. They sat on a fallen log as fog curled around their feet. Eleanor told her stories no one else knew. Arnold feeding stray animals behind the farmhouse. Arnold sparing a young thief who reminded him of himself. Arnold crying once, only once, after realizing he had misjudged a man. He was misunderstood, Eleanor said softly. But he was not heartless. Layla felt the voices in her head grow quiet. For the first time, the whispers listened. You think I'm misunderstood too? Layla asked. Eleanor smiled faintly. I think you are incomplete. The word lingered in the air. Incomplete? There is something in you, Eleanor continued, that neither Arnold nor Lucien possessed. Something even the devil did not anticipate when he made his bargain with me. Layla's eyes sharpened. And what is that? Eleanor leaned forward, her breath barely visible in the cold air. Choice beyond blood. Silence stretched between them. Maybe, Eleanor said gently. One day at the end of it all, you'll understand something not even Lucien or Arnold knew. And what is that? Layla pressed. But Eleanor stood. The fog thickened unnaturally. Power is not slaughter, she whispered. Power is authorship. The trees groaned as wind suddenly returned. Layla blinked, and Eleanor was gone. No footprints, no broken branches, just the woods. The shift. Layla returned to the farmhouse that night quieter than usual. Lucien noticed. What did you see? He asked carefully. Layla looked at him. History, she replied. Over the next year, the killings changed. Less frequent, more symbolic, more intentional. She no longer killed for the voices. She commanded them. The cult no longer worshipped chaos. They worshipped order through fear. Layla became myth before she became legend. Law enforcement called her the Blackfield matriarch, but in private circles, in candlelit rooms across universities and forgotten towns, they called her something else. The author. Years later, Lucien would die quietly in that farmhouse. Whitmore would disappear under federal investigation. The cult would fragment, but never vanish. And Layla, she would stand alone in the woods one final time, holding the pig mask, thinking of Eleanor, thinking of Arnold, thinking of something larger than blood. The wind would whisper, but this time, the whispers would wait for her command. And somewhere in the distance, an old woman would be watching, smiling. Years passed after the night in the woods. Eleanor's words haunted Layla more than the whispers ever had. Power is not slaughter. Power is authorship. At first, she dismissed it. She was already powerful. The cult still murmured her name in secret rooms. The myth of the Blackfield matriarch moved through online forums like a ghost in fiber optic cables. But Layla had changed. She no longer killed for hunger. She selected powerful men who hid cruelty behind philanthropy, executives whose charities masked trafficking, politicians who preyed on the vulnerable, predators who believed their money made them untouchable. For a year and a half, she hunted one man in particular. His name was untouchable in public, but in private, he was a collector of pain. Women disappeared around him. Older men who tried to expose him lost their reputations, their sanity, their lives. Layla watched him patiently, studied his routines, tracked his security. She did not rush. She authored Marcus Black. She met Marcus Black on accident, or maybe not. It was in a bookstore cafe in Manhattan. He was reading philosophy. Hannah Arendt, of all people. He had kind eyes, the kind that noticed when someone else looked tired. You look like you carry storms, he told her lightly. She almost laughed. If only he knew. Marcus was an architect. He designed restorative housing projects in low-income neighborhoods. He spoke about rebuilding broken systems the way Layla spoke about dismantling them. He didn't look at her like prey. He looked at her like a person, and that unsettled her more than any detective ever had. They began meeting for coffee, then dinner, then long walks where she almost forgot the weight of the pig mask locked in a hidden safe miles away. Marcus didn't know who she was. He knew Layla Marshall, not the Blackfield matriarch, not the author. Just Layla, and that terrified her. The hunt ends. The powerful man she had hunted for 18 months finally slipped. A private island gathering. Security tight but not perfect. Layla moved like silence. She confronted him in a dim corridor overlooking black water. He recognized her from nowhere. You're one of them, he sneered. One of the girls who thinks she can change the world. Layla tilted her head. No, she said calmly. I edit it. There was no rage in her. No frenzy. Just finality. By morning, his empire had already begun collapsing. Anonymous data leaks. Financial trails exposed. Hidden recordings delivered to journalists. His death looked like a suicide, but the symbol carved discreetly beneath his desk told another story. Blackfield had passed judgment. The discovery. Marcus wasn't stupid. He noticed her disappearances. The way she watched certain news stories without surprise. The scars on her hands. And one night, he followed her. He found the farmhouse. He found the mask. He found the truth. When Layla stepped inside and saw him standing there, holding the grotesque pig mask in trembling hands, she didn't panic. She didn't run. She just sighed. I wondered how long, she said softly. Marcus looked at her like someone staring at both a stranger and the love of his life at the same time. It's you, he whispered. You're the Blackfield matriarch. Silence filled the space between them. You kill people. I remove rot, she corrected. He should have run. Anyone else would have. The cult loved her because she was myth. Lucian loved her because she was legacy. But Marcus loved her because she brought stray cats food in winter. Because she cried at old war documentaries. Because she once stayed up all night with him when he doubted himself. You're not what they think you are, he said quietly. Layla blinked. That's ridiculous. You're not a monster, he insisted. You're wounded. You're choosing this because you think the world needs it. She stared at him. You're naive. Maybe, he admitted. But I don't love you because you're feared. I love you because you're kind. The word hit her harder than any bullet ever had. Kind. No cult member had ever called her that. She stepped closer. You should be afraid of me. I am, he said honestly. But I'm more afraid of losing you. She could have killed him. It would have been easy, clean, necessary. Instead, she removed the mask and left it on the floor. Years later, they left Blackfield behind. Not the legacy, just the stage. Marcus never approved of what she did. He never encouraged it, but he understood something deeper. Layla chose her targets with precision, and she stopped hunting indiscriminately. She hunted only when the system failed entirely. They married quietly. No cult, no ceremony in the woods, just vows. They had 2 children, a boy with Layla's eyes, a girl with Marcus's patience. Layla never told them about Blackfield, but she taught them discernment, strength, mercy, and consequence. The pig mask remained locked away, sometimes untouched for years, sometimes not. The meaning of Eleanor. One evening, as Layla watched her children playing in the yard, she finally understood. Eleanor hadn't meant that Layla would stop killing. She hadn't meant redemption. She meant authorship. Arnold killed because he couldn't stop. Lucian manipulated because he was afraid. Layla chose. She was not driven by blood. She commanded it. That was the difference. That was what neither Arnold nor Lucian had known. The final image. And somewhere beyond what living eyes can see, 2 figures stand in the edge of a field. Arnold Sinclair, Lucian, watching. Arnold's expression is softer than legend ever allowed. Lucian's pride quiet but undeniable. They see the children laughing. They see Layla's steady gaze. They know the world will never be free of monsters. And they know the bloodline will endure. Not as chaos, not as madness, but as judgment, as balance, as something authored. The wind moves gently through the trees. Layla looks up for a moment, sensing something unseen. Then she smiles faintly, and inside a locked drawer, the pig mask waits. Because legacy doesn't die, it evolves.